Hello, everybody, and welcome to the episode number 42. In this episode, I had the pleasure and the honor to talk with Will Harvey, aka Revilo Stuff, and he's a very talented American 3D artist. About 3 years ago, he was very curious about how this industry works, so he contacted probably the top of the top, which is Beeple. And Beeple gave him the advice to make an image every day and to get better, and he will get a job. So he has done every days for more than 900 days now. So it's an amazing story. I suggest you to listen to the whole conversation and hear more about Will. I want to remind you and to thank you, first of all, that you are supporting this podcast by listening and being so nice. To follow us on social media. And if you're not doing that yet, you can do it by just clicking the description below. But the names are at TCI Podcast on Instagram and the Creative Insider on LinkedIn and Facebook. And also, if you're interested in getting the best of every month, you can just click the link below and join our newsletter. So every month you'll get the best of the podcast. Yeah, so this is it. You're amazing with your support. Thank you very much and enjoy the podcast.
The whole world stops just like that. The whole world stops just like that.
Hello, Will. How are you doing, man?
Doing good. How about yourself?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good. It's so cool that we're doing this. This is, I think, the second intercontinental podcast we're doing here because I'm sitting in Germany or sitting in Georgia, US. So
Yeah.
it's really cool to have the technology to do this stuff nowadays. It's pretty handy.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm glad to be here. Thank you for having me on here. It's awesome.
No, you're welcome. I found about you from a YouTube video from another guest of mine which was Fabio Palvelli. He's an Italian designer. I don't know if you follow him or if you know about him. He's one of the co-founders of the D2 conference, which is like the biggest conference about archivists and generally like 3D art. So this is how I found about you, and he did this video about artists you should be following on Instagram that are very good and don't have that big followership as they should. And I went there and I said, this is like Beeple, another version of Beeple. So do you have do you get any inspiration from his work or?
Oh, not at all. Not at all. What do you, I don't know what you're talking about. I mean, it's not like no, I do. He was one of the first people I met in the 3D world. This was a while back, and he was the one that got me into the whole everyday art movement type of thing. And, yeah, he was a big inspiration on what I do. I try not to, and I've heard it a lot, like, oh my gosh, you got like this Beeple stuff. I'm like, I try not to because I want to be able to create my own style, and I'm trying to get into that, like getting my own style down. But I hear that usually is like, oh yeah, this is Beeple. I'm like, yeah, well, he's a big inspiration on stuff I do, especially doing everydays. So yeah.
Yeah, but not to say that you don't have your own style, but to say how remarkable is your work and consistency. And I found about Beeple too through the D2 conference because I saw on YouTube one of his keynotes at the D2 conference. And I was amazed by this guy because he cursed a lot, and he's really fun.
Yeah.
He's really fun to listen. And he was telling the story about how he started. He was doing some, I don't know, websites at some company or some, like, I don't know, some computer work anyways, and he was able to do his work so quickly that he started playing around with these softwares, and he become like the artist which we all know. But I'm curious to know about you and about how it all began with you. So was there a moment in your life where you decided or you knew that you're going to become this sort of 3D artist, 3D designer, or how did it happen?
Well, like, I got to backtrack here and go back in time for a second. So growing up, I've always wanted to do something in the arts. So it started off with me just making films. So I wanted to be a director growing up. And then as I was going through high school, I finally realized, yeah, this is going to be harder than I thought. Why don't I try to figure out another method and figure things out? And I decided, well, let me try to get into VFX. Let's see what that does. And I did, and I'd make like these little videos off of Andrew Kramer's tutorials and just like, like, oh, how to fly, how to do lightsabers. That was like one of the first few videos that I did. And I got somewhat good enough in After Effects that I was like, why don't I work on making like intros for these things, like title graphics, and do stuff like that? And I did. And it went from that to, oh, these are 2D. What if I go into 3D? And so I started getting into Blender. And then after that, I was like, Blender is not, and this was back when Blender was not the best. The UI looked really weird. It was hard to learn. I couldn't get around it as well. I was struggling a lot. And so I was like, what about this new thing, Cinema 4D? Let's try learning Cinema 4D. And I did, and I was having a little bit of struggle, but it was a lot easier. And so I decided, you know what, let me talk to some people. I talked to Beeple, and I talked to a few other people, and I started getting into the everydays. And that's when I think I figured out, I was like, I need to get into 3D more. And so I jumped straight, like, head into doing 3D. I did VJ loops, I did animations, and then the everydays. And that's when I was like, this is going to be the career I kind of want to go with. So,
yeah, that's interesting. But here now, two questions arise in my head. First one is, how old are you, by the way? Because how long ago did you started playing around with these softwares? And because I think isn't Blender kind of new? Like, I remember the first time I heard about Blender was like 7 years ago, something like that.
I think it's a little bit older. I think I can't remember the original date, but whenever I started it, I can't remember the version of it, but it was back when it wasn't as streamlined as it is now. Like, I mean, you see people like Ian Hubert using this and making it look super simple. Back then, it wasn't that simple, and you had to go through a bunch of loops and hoops and just trying to get stuff done, and it got so hard to be able to work through it. But I don't usually talk about my age.
Okay, you don't have to. You don't. I mean, you don't have to share if you don't want to.
I mean, it's I try to keep it out of the conversation just because, I see a lot of artists do this. They'll put their age in their like bios on anything, and I'm like, I feel like giving that out is not the best idea in terms of stuff.
I'm gonna put it in different terms. You don't want to put it out because you're way too young or way too
no, okay.
No, I'm joking. Come on.
I don't want to be judged based off of my age, if that makes any sense. Or I don't want a client in this, let's just use in hypothetical, I don't want to have a client saying, oh, this guy, I love his work. I think and then they find out something like, oh, he's this. And it's like, oh, he's no, we can't do this. He's not, he's got to be like 30. He's got to be in the industry for like 20 plus years. Like, no, he can't. And So I think I don't think that should be the thing. I think you should judge an artist based on their artwork, but it just happens to be that that's the case for a lot of things. So I don't usually talk about it a lot. So
Okay. No, it makes sense. I never thought it in this term that revealing your age can bias people, but you actually right. And you said the second question I had in my mind is you said like you reach out with Beeple, but this guy, I mean, I tried to reach out too, but he never replied. So how did you got his attention, or was he not that popular back in the days when you contacted him?
First, let me ask: Can I curse? Or
you can?
Because I know
curse.
if we talk about people, there's
no,
gonna be
you
some
can
cursing.
curse. You can curse. You can curse. We
Okay.
are. We can do whatever we want.
Okay, I knew it. Once we talk about people, it's gonna happen. It's gonna come up. So, I contacted him a while back. This was like before the Everydays, which I think now it's almost 3 years in the Everydays. I think maybe I can't even keep track at this point, but I contacted him then. I just sent him an email. I was like, "Hey, I'm this dude from this place. I'm wanting to learn how to do like Cinema 4D, but I just wanted to be able to talk to someone about this industry." And a few days went by, and then he contacted me back, and I was like, "Oh, okay, he actually did." But I didn't realize how big this dude was. I didn't realize like what he had done. I just knew he was an artist, and I just wanted to talk to somebody. And he contacted back, and I'm pretty sure he was thinking, "Oh God, who's this kid? What is he doing? Oh my God, fine, I'll reply back to him." But we contacted, we talked for a little bit, it was just like a one-on-one, like, what do I need to do? What's the best move to be able to make whenever I'm doing this? What do I need to do in terms of learning the software? I don't want to ask. I didn't ask him like, how do I make a sweep object, or like, what's a subsurface modifier? Like, I didn't ask him these things. I asked him not broad questions, but specific questions to the industry itself. Where do I need to go in terms of business? Like, what do I need to do whenever I give a client like a invoice or like an estimate? How do I need to price myself? Like things like that. And we just talked for a while, and then and in the end, he finally said, if you want to get better, the business does come with it, but you need to be able to learn not only the software, but the ideas of composition and basically basic art techniques. So the Everydays will help you out in those terms. You'll finally figure out, this doesn't look good because the composition isn't right. There needs to be symmetry on this one because, it doesn't balance out in the image. Just basic things. And when you get that down, you're able to get more clients. People will see it, people will like it, and you'll see yourself get better over time. So, and when he told me that, I was like, you know what? Tonight I'm doing the Everydays. I'm going to start the Everydays. I'm going to get it done. And we're going to see how long this lasts. I gave myself about 100 days. And then I just realized, like, yeah, I should probably just keep going. And I did. And now I'm here. So
where did you contact him, on Instagram or somewhere else, or per email or whatever?
I think I email. I don't recommend anybody out there just go and randomly email this guy, because he's probably just gonna be like, oh. But I mean, I try to be as professional as I could. I contacted him. I said, hey, through email, and he replied back. So.
No, that
do be professional when you contact him, because I don't want to be the one to be like, I don't want him coming to me saying like, dude, just random people just message. I'm like, and I don't want to be like, oh, I'm sorry, man.
I think that this podcast is not big enough yet to generate such a traffic on his email, and I guess that he has already probably a lot of people contacting him, so that's fine. But
maybe, hey, you never know, this could blow up in like tonight. This could be just insane. You never know.
Yeah, well, in case it happens, we're sorry. Sorry for you people. Happy for us. We exploded as a podcast. Joe Rogan, who, anyways. I wanted to ask you because I told you I listened his keynote, and he started explaining how he does this every days, and he does it no matter what. Like he go camping, he has his laptop. No matter what laptop he has, he does one every day. Whatever he models, he doesn't model. He use ready models, whatever. So I think that. How was for you in the beginning, because you started doing it too? If you start with, let's say, Cinema 4D, which is a software you guys use, in the beginning, if I start learning today, I try to see how it works, this software, and I could make in the end a cube and a little bit shape it somehow. What was your first everyday? Because if you're not like with which skill set did you start in the beginning?
My first everyday was complete garbage. And that's the point. I mean, there are people that start the everydays and who are industry veterans, and they just want to get into it just because they want to be able to, like, keep some knowledge of it. Because I mean, there are days like you're not doing anything. You're probably just sitting there, and with the everydays, it keeps you on your toes. It keeps you going. So my first everyday, I wasn't an industry veteran. I knew a lot of software, but I didn't know Cinema 4D completely. So I started off with just a sphere displaced with a displace modifier, and then just a bunch of stuff around a scene. I think it was like a meadow or something, and I used the grass within Cinema 4D and then just placed a bunch of stuff around the scene, and that was my everyday for the first day. And so it didn't look good at all. I will be the first to tell you it looks awful. And if a lot of people do go back on my website or wherever it is and look at it, they're probably going to say the same thing. Like, my God, oh my God, what is this? Like, yeah, compared to something I've done now, it's going to look bad. So and throughout that first year, it's gonna gradually get a little bit better, but it's not gonna look as good as what I'm probably doing now or what I've done before. So I would set up goals throughout that first year. Like, if this year's goal is gonna be, I'm gonna learn how to model, or I'm gonna learn how to sculpt, or if for one day I'm like, you know what, I've done modeling for every day for the past month. Why don't I switch on to something like texturing? And I'll do that. So I would just set up these little goals throughout the year to be able to learn Cinema 4D more. So
How long have you been doing everydays now?
oh my gosh, hold on, let me let me check.
Rough number.
I can pull it up one sec. 908 today.
So
Well, tomorrow or yesterday was 908. Today would be 909 once I get it done. So
oh my God, I can only imagine how would you feel if you have to skip one day.
Oh, so I will figure out and that's the thing. That was the thing that Mike or Beeple, Mr. Winkleman, instilled. I guess I don't think he meant to, but I think that's what I got from it, was get an everyday done every day, whether you have to take a picture with your iPhone of the forest behind you and upload that as an everyday, or whether you have to draw on and you'll see on my Instagram, like I have like drawings, like people are like, what is this? I thought this was 3D. This is supposed to be 3D. I'm like, no, this is my everyday for the day because I had to replace a part of my computer. So, or I had to change something. But he instilled in our conversation, he instilled like, get the everyday done. That is priority number one. If you can't, figure out a way. And so, and just like you said, he'll take his laptop wherever he needs to go to be able to finish that every day. If he didn't have that laptop, he would figure out a way to finish that every day for that day, whether he has to take a stick and draw in the mud when he's in the middle of the woods to make an everyday, he'll get it done. So
Yeah, and even your like profile picture on your Instagram account, it's a drawing. It's not a 3D, so that's kind of cool. By the way, like we used to have a little post of our guest. I don't know if you have seen the feed of the podcast where the guests send a picture. I always tell the guests this is a podcast about creativity. So it doesn't have to be a picture. It can be also some drawing or whatever you want. For example, our guest, I don't know if you know about them. There is a big, it's archivist office in Paris. It's called Luxigon, and their founder Eric was on the podcast. He's like one of the pioneers of the 3D representation in architecture. And he didn't send me the picture. He sent me sort of a drawing of himself because it's his way of being. He's saying like I'm doing images no matter with what. If you give me a pencil, I'm gonna do it with a pencil. So if you want for your own post of the of the episode, you can just give me something that you have drawn or some whatever you want. It doesn't have to be a picture. If you want to go like you can treat your face as your age, like people will see, maybe even whatever you feel.
that's funny. Yeah, we'll stay in contact. We'll figure something out. We'll get something done. I think that's a funny idea. I think it'd be fun as long as you're okay with it. I feel like I'm okay with it, but
yeah,
we'll figure it out.
As soon as you do it, cool. Anyways, and well, what you were saying about, I think what is like very hard for like what was the concept behind the everyday. It's no, for example, we do this podcast every week. Like no matter what, every Monday there is one podcast. If there is no guest, we'll manage out some topic about creativity. We're gonna chat for 15 minutes or 20 minutes or whatever it needs to be out. And this is how it started. I started by doing because I'm a guy that usually when I want to start something new, I'm more fascinated about the cool gear than the actual thing. Like if I start playing a sport, let's say I don't know anything about American football, but I want to wear, I don't know, Tom Brady's boots and I don't know, helmet and shit like that. And I just want to buy the cool stuff. And with the podcast, it was like, okay, I'm going to start with my phone so that I'm not going to spend my money on stuff. And I see if I like the process and it's going to go. And now it's like 40 something weeks or by the time we're going to release this podcast, I don't know how many weeks, but we have done every single Monday, one episode. And as you said, like you see, like you do one podcast and you see one little thing you did wrong, and you're like, okay, I need in the next podcast to do it to avoid that mistake. So I was wondering, I know now what was your first when you did your first everyday. What did you think? What did you do the second everyday image? Was it directly something that you slightly improved, or how did you approach that?
So when I started, I think mostly what I was getting through my head was learn the software and then worry about technique. Because you'll have some people come into it knowing 3D like through and through, whether it be Blender, whether it be Maya, whether it be Cinema 4D, they know. So sometimes they'll go into doing everydays knowing, okay, I know the software. Now I just need to work on technique, or I need to work on composition. Me, I didn't know the software through and through. I knew how to work 3D stuff, like how to move an object, what is a primitive object. Like I just knew very basic stuff. So my goal throughout the first month or two was learn the software through and through, and then work on technique. And sometimes there happens to be that one piece that you make that happens to be like pretty good for a first week or something, or first 2 weeks. And that one's just like, okay, yeah, that's cool. but the goal wasn't so much to make something compositionally look good or textures look good or the scene looks good. It was just, I need to learn the software. Let's get it done. Then let's worry about the creativity side of it all as well. So, like, if you go back and look at those, it's,
I'm,
oh
I'm
my
trying
gosh, they're
to
bad.
I'm trying to scroll back to the beginning to see to see
Oh
this
gosh.
first image, but it doesn't like it needs a while before you get to to a
Yeah.
spot where it's not that good. But I'm curious also, how did you at all figure out about the softwares you need to learn? And because, for example, like I'm an architect myself, and my cousin, he's older than me a couple of years. He studied architecture before me, and that got me a little bit familiar. And then here I grew up in Italy, and there I went to a high school of arts. And then after the third year, you can, pick up some subjects which already direct you towards architecture, and the teachers are architects themselves, and then they teach you, they tell you, they mention stuff, like they mention stuff. And I was always a geek. I would Google stuff. I would figure out how to find softwares and stuff. Like where we had a big lab at school, we could have a lot of like computer software, let's say. How about you? How did you figure out about which software and so on?
The internet. Nah, it was I did go on the internet and I would look up like, oh, I need an edit. It started off, I was wanting to do film stuff and be a director. So I'd look up editing software. And of course, you would pull up Premiere Pro or something. That's like probably the first one that pulls up. And so I was like, okay, let's just look at this. Let's see what we can do. And then I wanted to do like VFX. So I looked up what's the best VFX software. I'd go and it'd say After Effects. I'm like, okay, let's learn After Effects. Let's see what happens. Get the free trial. If we like it, let's figure out a way to be able to get a subscription and then go from there. Um, and then when it came to 3D, I was like, okay, what's the best 3D software? And I was looking and I was like, ooh, this is very expensive. Let's let's pull back a little bit. And so I got into Blender. And it finally got to the point where I was like, I've got to get it. I can't use Blender anymore. It's holding me back just a little bit. I want to unleash whatever creative thing in my head. And so I switched over to Cinema 4D. I had like a trial or whatever. And then I would just, and it was that on top of like talking to people. So I would go and talk to some 3D artists. Like I'd be like, hey, I know you probably get this a lot, but what softwares do you use to be able in your workflow to be able to get stuff done? And they would tell me like, oh, Cinema 4D, After Effects, Photoshop, Lightroom, and I would just write these things down. I would go and I'd figure out a way to get these softwares for a little bit, whether it be a free trial or if I can get like a code or a subscription or something to be able to use it, I would. And then I would go and I would learn anything and everything within that free trial period or as much as I could. And then from there, if I really loved it, I would move on and keep going. So,
And I'm curious. I just figured out I got to the first every day, and it doesn't look as as bad as you described it
ugh.
for a first every day. How much did it took you to make this first one?
Oh, that took me like, if I can remember, I got home. It was probably around like, I remember because after the conversation, I was like, I've got to do this. I've got to do this. I get home. I think it might have been like 4 o'clock, and I didn't finish until 11:30 that night because I had to post it before 12, and I was so anxious that I wasn't going to get it by 12. So I was like, oh gosh, I got to get it done, and I uploaded it at like maybe 11:30, somewhere around there. So
Yeah, but I can see that you have a very, like, a good you have a good understanding of geometry, so to say, because I see like the first everydays and they're pretty geometrical. There's some loops and things like that. Did you have anything in your, like, I don't know how it's, what is your education in general, because I'm not very familiar with the American education system, because I know you have like high school and then you go to college and then university. We in Europe it's hard to get this difference between college and university, because we have like high school and then university.
Yeah.
What is your
High
background?
school. So high school is more like you're just learning like there's a lot of things I'm like, why are we learning this in high school? If if I'm going off to be a 3D artist, what is this gonna, but in high school you're just learning like general education stuff on top of what you've already learned through elementary and middle school. It isn't until you go off to like college that's when you actually go and learn for your career. So like throughout like when throughout high school I was just teaching myself. Like I was just going in trying to learn stuff myself. I didn't have I didn't have like teachers like telling me, "Oh yeah, this 3D software is amazing." Like no, they were worried about ABCs and one, two, threes. I was worried about how to render or flip an image, like so it was just, there was a big disconnect from that. So the only way I would know how to learn was the internet, a hand manual, like like literally I would go on the internet and find like manuals and then print them out and then keep them with me. And every once in a while, like be like, what, how do I accomplish this? And I'd go through the manual and be like, oh, if I want to make multiple objects, I just use a cloner. And then I just put something under a cloner and it would clone it. And I'm like, okay, nice. I learned that. Let's move on. So
I think before we started recording the podcast, we were talking a little bit about like different things, and you were asking me also how do I see the US from the outside. And I listen a lot of American podcasts, and I love like Joe Rogan and listen to all his podcasts and his guests. And but what is, it's a recurrent sort of path when I hear about the US is this: you guys are more like doers, and you get easily fired up about stuff, like because you get your reply from Beeple and you get fired up and you're like super, like there's this sort of spirit. I think what, for example, if I had to pick one thing that I really admire in the US is that people get fired up, they start doing something, and they have sort of more of belief in themselves, to and the other people, the surrounding, from what I hear, they're not like judging you, and they're not like, oh, that's not gonna work out. They are more like, yeah, try out. And here in Europe, we are more like, if you say that you're starting to do something, if you're just trying, people gonna tell you why you're doing it, that's stupid, you're gonna fail. And they kind of cheer for you to fail, because if you succeed, then you're like, I don't know, I have the feeling that if you succeed, they'll be like, yeah, he made it, now I feel bad about myself. I mean, this is of course generalizing a lot, and I think that in the US you have more this entrepreneurial stuff, and people like are willing to support you. I don't know if you see it the same way.
I think in your instance, people are more realistic. They want to see you succeed, but they want to see you succeed in life and not so much just in one little area, which I completely understand. I've had people in my life say like, "Oh yeah, you're wanting to do this thing. Well, what are you going to do for a real job?" And I'm just like, "No, this is what I want to do for a job. Like this is what I want to do for my life." And they're like, "Oh," and they don't understand like people get paid for this. They don't, especially from where I'm from. Like what I do is unheard of. Like I try to explain it to people, like what 3D art is and what 3D motion design stuff is, and they're like, "Oh, it's that Pixar stuff, right? And I'm like, no, it's little bit. You're on the right track, but not close. And they're like, oh, okay. And but they want to see you happy, so they'll be like, okay, yeah, go do it, and yada yada. But they're not so much realistic. Like they need to be in certain things. You got to be realistic. Like if you want to start off a business, you can't throw everything in one basket and hope it's going to work out, because there's a possibility it's not going to work. And you got to have that idea in your head that like, I do want this to work out, but I can't just throw everything at something and hope it works. I got to start slowly and then go. And that's how I think a lot of success stories start, is they think of it realistically and then they end up at the top after a few years of trying and failing and trying and failing. So I think you should have a little bit of both. You should be optimistic. You should be, I want to do it. I want to do it so badly. I will do anything to be able to get to this position in life. But you also got to be realistic with yourself and be like, okay, let's take some baby steps. Let's not go and, like, if I'm doing 3D design, let's not go and buy that $10,000 PC with a 3090 in it and this giant Ryzen chip and just everything. Start off slow. If you can get a laptop, get a laptop. Start learning the basics, then go up from there and keep rising throughout the ranks and get yourself to the point where you want to be. So,
Yeah, right. I agree with you totally on this point. And also, like, I think in general, people need to give themselves a longer term for success, because if you're starting something out as you did with just one picture and you said, okay, I'm gonna do this every day, a lot of people drop off the way after a month. And a month, of course, is not the time that you can mature the skills to go professional with something like this. And also, for example, when I started this show, which is something similar, but it's different but similar, I said, okay, I watched a YouTube video from Matt Davella, where he was, I don't know if you know about him, he's like, he did the documentary, the minimalism on Netflix. And he said something like, in this video, he said, you should give yourself, like, I don't know, when you start something, think about doing it for 2 years or 3 years and then see how it goes, because in a month it's not gonna happen. And I'm curious, in your case, after how long time did it take you before you thought, okay, now my skills are good enough to do this for money? And how did you transition from just learning to getting money?
I don't think it was so much me I don't think it was me telling myself that I'm ready. I think it was other people in the art world. Half of it is being yourself and being like part of it is being yourself and being creative and doing what you want to do. But the other half is the business half of things. And you got to understand, like, if you're creating something for yourself, you're going to like it. That doesn't mean a lot of other people are going to like it. So if you're wanting to sell that, you might like it, but a lot of other people are probably not going to like it as well. So you have to learn along the way that you're going to have to probably make stuff that you're not going to enjoy, but people are going to like it. So it wasn't until I started actually getting clients and figuring out, okay, maybe I need to go this route and go this way with some creative stuff. That's when I decided, okay, that this is when I'm going to start making stuff for people and actually doing this as a side gig and try to make some money and see what happens. And then it kind of just unfolded from there. I think I was going to keep going with the everydays. I was just going to plow through it and figure it out. If I had not gotten any offers to do jobs, or if I had not gotten any of that, I probably would have still been doing the everydays. I would have just kept going just because I like doing them. And I think the success of some jobs and people liking your work does help out in that process of doing the everydays. But in my instance, like, I think I would have just kept going just because I wanted to just see how long I could do it. I think I'm stubborn, so like I would have been like, oh man, you better do your every day. You're gonna be pissed if you don't. You got to get it done. Like, and I just would have been like, crap, yeah, and just gone and done it anyways.
But was there a time where you were doing this just on the side and you were working another job, or how did it work?
Yeah, I took up a few jobs. I was a like I like I had said, I was big into film, so I had a videographer job with a company, but like a local company, and would just go and film like highlight videos for them, of their company, not and I would edit it and then put graphics on it and do that as a side gig. But to be honest, like where I'm from, like not a lot of people had like this, they weren't big on technology. So like how you or I are on social media a lot posting stuff, and then we're big on like we're big on internet stuff. A lot of the people in that area are not. They're just not. So like I would go and film stuff, and it would be like a week or two by the time I'd go and do something different because they're not they're not trying to post stuff constantly out into the world. So it left me free time to be able to do everydays. So I would just come home after a while and do the everydays. And then the next day I'd go back to work and be like, okay, what do I need to do? And if they're like, well, we need you to film this thing. After that, we don't have anything else for you. I'd be like, okay. I'd film it and then go back home and do my everyday. Like, or I would do a VJ loop or like a small animation. If I wanted to get better, I would go and do those things. So,
And do you think was social media what got you the first paid gig as a freelance or as a designer in as a 3D designer? And what was actually your first paid job? Like, how did that look like, your first gig where they told you, we want you to design for us this or that?
it was like, oh my gosh, it was a while ago. It wasn't anything big at all. Like when I mean, when I literally mean like it was not big at all. It was like, hey, dude, can you do a logo for me in 3D? Like we need it for our esports team. And I'm like, okay. And it turns out that it didn't really go anywhere, but I got paid for it, and so I did it and just moved on. And so and of course I wasn't thinking, oh, I'm 30 every day's in. I'm gonna get a job from Nike. Like, no, it's like, of course I'm gonna have to go through the grunt work of doing the small projects, like doing those logos for local people who are probably gonna make it halfway and then just end up not using it, you know. Or I'm gonna have to go and do a YouTube banner for somebody who's really wanting to be a content creator. Or you just have to go through those small hoops to get to the stuff you want to be at in the future. So, or do in the future.
And when you started, I mean, as everyone, you were completely new, not only as a designer, but as a sort of entrepreneur or business-wise, let's say. What were your first difficulties in that field? Because I can imagine also that, I don't know, if I imagine like you doing something, how did you, for example, decided how much it's gonna cost for the clients, or all everything what is business related? I don't know, accounting or company. Did you need to open a company and stuff like that? What were the first challenges to put it together, sort of with the bureaucracy or company wise or whatever?
Well, like in the beginning, it was literally like backdoor type stuff. Like, hey, you're my buddy. Can you do this logo for me? I'm like, yeah, sure. And then they would just pay me on Venmo or something, like, or on PayPal or something like that. Like, here's this amount of money. And at the beginning, it was all local stuff. So like, I'd go and see this guy at a Panera Bread or something and go talk shop with him for a little bit and then just draw something up and then do it. Like, it was not anything big at all. So like it was as simple as like, here's $25, make me a logo. And I'm like, okay. And then that would be and I'd make the logo for $25 or something. It probably wasn't that, but yeah, I'm just hypothetically, like, it would be that much or something. And in the beginning, I would price myself low because I knew I was brand new. I can't price myself over, and these guys are local, so they're not they can't pay $500 for a logo. That's very unrealistic for someone who's down the street from you wanting a logo or something. So I would price myself low, and then over time I would gradually start getting better. I'd get more clients, and then I'd have to raise my rates because I had things I had to pay for, like a normal job, or like anything else. You're gonna have to, if you're wanting to do something different with your life, like if you're wanting to buy a car, or if you're wanting to buy like a new computer, you got to raise your rates a little bit to be able to sustain these things. So over time, I gradually would raise my rates a little bit and would start, and just kept going and see what would happen. So.
And where did it develop? Like, who are your clients now? Like, I mean, not physically who are they, but like, what do they need? Because, for example, myself, I'm not very familiar with exactly your industry, because you do more like artwork. Like in our industry, we have people who come to us and say we need a building, and we do a building. But in your case, you could do logos, you could do video clips, you could do, I don't know, I heard Beeple did something like music CD covers, or did video stuff for Justin Bieber too, I don't know, something like that. So I'm curious what kind of things you do now, and for whom generally.
So I've dabbled in a few things, like and but I mostly do like concert visuals and album art, and I've lately been getting into a lot more advertisement videos. I had done them before, but not as much as I've done now. So I've been getting into that. But before the pandemic, like, I was doing concert visuals for artists, like anything behind them that was playing on these giant screens. I would do stuff like that. Or like if there's like a graphic in the beginning or something that needs to be played, I would make that for the screen behind them or something. So I would do mostly stuff like that. And then album art, usually I'll pick up work like that, but most of the time I'm trying to do more motion graphic stuff.
Okay, that means more like video. And due to the pandemic, when all these events stopped, did that hit you somehow, or was still okay? You got something else?
Yeah, it hit drastically. I had stuff planned out for that year that was gonna help me in the help me in the industry that I was in. It didn't work out because of what happened, and but that it led me to other opportunities as well. So I wasn't. I was sad that it didn't work out because of what happened, but I'm glad that I was able to work around and figure out another way to work. And so they, of course, like, concerts weren't a thing, so everything went virtual. Well, who's going to make the virtual stuff? Who's going to make the graphics behind these people for virtual concerts? Like, it's going to have to be people like me, or like Alex Ness or Beeple, or all, making these concert visuals. So they would hire people like that to come in and do that. I did some work for the City Girls for the BET Awards, and I had to go and do graphics for them because they had a giant screen and they needed somebody to do those graphics. So they hired me to go in and do that. So it wasn't like I was completely. It wasn't like completely destroyed. I think it morphed into something different. Whether that goes back and morphing back into what it was, we'll have to find out. But as of now, it's still in that stage of being morphed into something completely different. So yeah.
And how does your workflow look like now? Like, what are the softwares you currently use to model, to render, to post produce, and so on?
The main programs that I use at the moment are Cinema 4D, Octane Render, just because I need to be able to have the speed to finish what I need to finish. I use Octane Render. From there, depending on if it's a still, if it's a still, I'll go into Photoshop, and then go into Lightroom if needed. And if it's a video, I'll go into After Effects and add like composition or I'll add a compositing and like different effects to it. The color, I'll color grade in After Effects. I don't think it's the best to do it that way, but I'll do that. And then if I need any further editing, I'll just go into Premiere Pro at the end for any animated videos.
And what is the process, so to say, of keyboard? Like when you get an assignment, do you do some hand sketching or how do you plan your artwork? Or you start just playing around with the software, and how do you get ideas of what you're going to do?
Depending on the project, I will sketch out some images and scan them and send them to the client, and I'll put them in like a PDF or something and do stuff like that. But a good majority of the time, the deadlines are so quick. Like, hey, Thursday night, I get a call. Hey, we need you to do some visuals for so and so. And I'm like, okay, what's the deadline? Oh, we need them by Saturday. So I have that night, Friday night, Saturday morning, got to get it in and see what they think. So it's like it's very quick. I don't have time to draw things up immediately, send them to the client, see what they think, and then get it back. I could, but I would just be wasting time when I could just open up Cinema 4D, put a few objects in a scene, see what it looks like, send that frame out to them, and if they like it, then I can go from there. It could just be super quick. And most of the time, like that's not all the time, but a good amount of the time, that's how it usually goes because they need something done by tomorrow, by like yesterday. Like they need it done like quick. So yeah, so I have to work on my toes and like get a move on. So can't waste any time.
So in your field is very similar to mine. And yeah, because like most of the time at work when we say like, oh yeah, and by when do I need to finish that? Yesterday. I'm curious, but these people, when they come to you, like suddenly, like let's say this short deadline, are they usually clients that you already work with them? Because I can imagine that when you do images for them or whatever media, they have sort of a brand label or something. Like I imagine that if you're doing the graphics for something that's gonna be seen for from certain people will be different than like from others. So that's what I was asking, like this mood, you already know what this client want, or they give you like some specific indication, like we want, I don't know, graphics that are very happy or very dark, or I don't know.
Usually they'll, and this is the best possible way, and I'm glad that I work for people that understand this as well. But for the artist, I think the best possible thing is don't say do your own thing, because in the end, when that artist is giving you what you told them, which is do your own thing, it's not going to be to your liking. So sometimes, and a good majority of the time, like they'll give me a mood board and say we need this, this, and this in it. And then even then, they'll pull out images that I've already done. They'll pull out stuff from like my everyday catalog, maybe from another project. They say, hey, we like the tone of this, but we don't want the same image. We don't want this. We just like the color. We like the atmosphere, we like the time of day it is, we like the lighting, like just certain things of this. Like we like the highlight on this tree. Can you please put it in this with this character or with this object and yada, and we'll move on from there. So they'll come in with a mood board and say, hey, we need this idea. We need you to get this done for us if you can. And then they'll show me an everyday that I've probably done and say, we want the environment to kind of look like this, but we want to change the colors in it. Or we want to change the objects in it. Like, we don't like this tree. Can you make it a pine? Oh, no. Can you change this water? It's too reflective. Can you? And they'll just go in and do that. And I'm like, thank you, because I don't want to get it wrong the first time and have to redo this when we're on a deadline of 2 days. Like, so.
Yeah. So, but that's so. In the end of the day, this whole process of doing every days is also what gets you clients, I guess, now, because if they have this, I mean, your portfolio is huge. I'm currently like looking at your feed, and you can scroll and scroll and scroll and find so many different things, which look so dope. And I'm curious, how did the process of making every days also evolve now, because they are very elaborated, and I really like wonder myself how you can do every day one of these images, because they're like, they look like a lot of work in like for one day.
Yeah, it was weird when someone actually came to me and said, "Oh yeah, we have this mood board or whatever," and they put my everydays up there. I'm like, I haven't seen that before. And then I realized, like, these everydays aren't just something for me. They are there for people to look at and actually judge what this is going to look like in the end. So the everydays are your portfolio. It isn't just something you do, like, and that's why I get people to try to do the everydays. I tell them it not only will improve you, it will get you, it'll get you client work, but it also will tell the clients, this is what work I do. This is what I as an artist look like. This is what this is going to end up looking in the final outcome. So it's very important that you have that out there so that they can pick and choose from what you have. So if you only have 5 images, they're going to be like, it's going to be very limited. But if you have 1,000 something images, or you're like, you have all these images, they can go in and go scroll through and be like, I like the mood of this one. Scroll through. Oh, I like the tone of this one. Scroll through. Oh, I like this color. And just go through and figure out which one goes with which, and put it together in a mood board and send it to you. So, yeah, I hope I answered that question right. I don't.
No, that's correct.
Close.
That's correct. But what I'm wondering also is, how do you do them today? Because in the beginning for you was some new field. You were fired up. You just would start playing around with the software. And today you are now almost 3 years, probably 900 days.
Close.
Yeah.
Let's just say close.
When
Let's
you
just say
get close to 3 years, they are two and a half, let's say.
Yeah.
And now, like, I'm scrolling, and probably I've been through 90 days of those 900 or whatever. And all the pictures, they look really, really like elaborated, really good. So I'm wondering nowadays, as it's sort of also your profession to do them, because they also do the job to get you clients, do you plan them in advance? How do you do them today? How do you have some models that you just smash somehow together and then put everything through the Octane renderer? What is your work process to do on every day? How much time it takes you today?
So I think on average, like, it just it depends on the day. Like, if I come home late because I had to go and do something, and I'm like, oh god, I got to get something done, I'll pick and choose some models I'll put together. I'll have an idea in my head, and maybe I just want to do something in Photoshop more. Like, I have this, like, let's say I have a model of a deer and I have this computer or something, and yada yada. I'll probably just put the deer on the computer and want to work more in Photoshop and create more of an atmosphere in Photoshop more. So it just depends. Nowadays, the everydays last maybe 2.5 hours at most. Like just trying to get stuff done and move on, because I also have client work I have to get to as well nowadays. In the beginning, I had a good amount of time to be able to just learn. Now, don't get me wrong. Like I still learn. Like I'm not as knowledgeable in a lot of things, so I'm still wanting to learn. Like I've started to try to pick up like Marvelous Designer, which is like the clothing application to make like clothes and simulate like cloth and things like that. I've tried to get into that more lately. And like I've been trying to get into Substance Painter, just little things so I can keep ahead of the game. Like I don't want to be left behind not knowing all these things. So I want to try to stay in touch with whatever's new or whatever's coming out or what people use in the industry. So the more I can do that and apply that to my everydays, the better I'm going to get. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's like very true, because I remember I've heard once like an interview with, I think it was Jeff Bezos, that was saying that there is no like, you cannot stay in the same spot. If you stay in the same spot, it's just a regression. There is no static position in life. That means if you don't do these things, new software is gonna come out, other people are gonna learn them, and what you can do, it's not any more valuable, and it's important. And how much of your images are at 3D, and what is Photoshop? Because some of them look so sick. You have like, I don't know, some sort of environment with a person that's looking at something weird, like giant loops or giant diamonds or giant mushrooms. So for me, what looks, for someone that knows roughly what it looks like to model something in these 3D softwares, because I'm modeling 3D stuff too, but completely different. They're more realistic, like more real compared to what you do. To me, for example, what looks very, very time consuming is probably to make this landscape, or it's not like, what are the, when, of course you say sometimes you concentrate on something different, but what is the most elaborated part in the 3D and what is 2D? Like what is Photoshop?
I try. So you pick up like tips and tricks, because it used to, like, let's take this as an example. I would used to model out a scene, get something done, and it's just this little thing. I would go and get like a sphere and model and like get a moon together. Like I wanted to have the moon in the scene, and I would put it like far out in the distance in the 3D scene, scale it up, yada yada, and then render it out. And it got to a point where I was like, wait, this is far out in the scene. Not only that, I'm wasting time putting a moon in the scene and having to place it. Why don't I just go and grab one off of NASA's website and just Photoshop it in the scene? It doesn't make any sense for me to model this. So I did. I literally just did that. So anytime you ever probably see a moon nowadays, unless it's super close to the camera, there's no point in me modeling it. So I just Photoshop it into the scene. And like VDBs, like I don't use a lot of VDBs unless that's the main the main focus of the image, like that flame or that VDB in the scene. Unless that's the main focus, I don't Photoshop it, or I don't. No, I should say, I don't put it in the scene. I'll Photoshop it. So like any fog you probably see in a scene, that's probably Photoshop. I'm compositing that in. So
you have to educate me a little bit, and maybe the people who are listening, what does VDB stands for?
Oh my gosh, it's been. We were having I was with the Dizzy Viper. You know the Dizzy Viper,
No.
Fabian. He's another 3D artist as well. Awesome guy, love him. He's a streamer as well. Him and a few other stream buddies. We were talking about this a while back. What VDB was, and we just sat there like making up random like volumetric, displaced, big boy. Like I don't know. We were just like coming up with like dumb names for what VDB stands for. But it's basically all it is it's a volume. It's a volume. So it's like if you had a box and it was let's say Blender. So you take like a texture or you take something and you put it on that box and you add a volume to it. It's basically like you're adding atmosphere, or you're adding like basically just fog. Like you're adding realistic fog within a scene. So like in Octane, there's like a specific thing called a fog VDB or like a volume box. And that just creates like fog. And you can take like specific ones, like I think Embergen has like free VDBs of like explosions. So it's all gaseous explosions just animated. And you could throw that in a scene and call it a day if you wanted to, and that could be your everyday, but it's just all it is a volume. So yeah.
And I'm curious because you mentioned another 3D artist. How did you come up with the name Revilo? Because Revilo is what is your Instagram name?
Yeah, so way back when, in the olden days, I was in high school. I had a teacher. His name was Oliver, or his name is Oliver. And we had this, and back then we had a little video crew that started with me and that teacher. I was big into video stuff, and they had just canceled or had dropped a class for film, and I didn't want to not be in film because that's something I loved. So him and I got together and we created this little thing called Frank Revilo. And so, all it is a nickname along with his name backwards. So Oliver backwards is Revilo. And so as time moved on, I was like, you know what? I like this. It's weird. It's hard to pronounce. Let's use it as a name. Like that's a good name. So I took that name and applied it to my own work. And so now I'm Revilo. So.
I think something else that made me think that you're very similar to Beeple is because your account is actually called Revilo _staff, and his Instagram is Beeple _crap. So that was something.
I think when I made it, I was like, Revilo. Oh, it's taken. Okay, I can't do that. Revilo _ something. Oh, it's taken. Well, crap. I don't want to put numbers in my name because then I just look like a gamer tag on Xbox or something. Why don't I I'll just put stuff. Like it's super simple. It's a small account. Just, I don't know, who cares? Like, you know? And so I just put Revilo _stuff. And then I had people actually say, dude, this is a weird coincidence. It's Beeple _crap and yours is Revilo _stuff. I'm like, oh yeah, I guess it's just a funny coincidence. So
yes,
just, yeah.
And does he know now that you are a pretty good 3D artist and that you're in the industry? Do you keep in touch with each other somehow? Because basically he was your like idol of inspiration, and now you're the student that at least reached the master. I cannot say that you surpassed.
I don't know about master, but I don't know about master, but yeah, we still keep in touch. I'll check in and be like, hey, what's up, man? How you doing? And if I need something, or like and I won't ask him like super simple stuff like, dude, how do I displace this within a texture? Because no, I'll go look it up myself. That's a question for the internet, and I'm pretty sure there's 20 billion answers out there on the internet for something that has to do with an application. But if I have like lately, it's been like crypto stuff. So I've asked like, hey, what is what is this? I'll go. I've looked it up, but it seems I'd rather have somebody who knows what they're doing explain this, because it just doesn't make any sense, because you're using new terminology. I have no clue what it means. Like blockchain, I had no clue what a blockchain was. But and I didn't just ask him though. I asked other people as well. Like I asked the Dizzy Viper. I asked David Ariev, a few other people about it, and just but yeah, I kept in contact with them a little bit. I don't like bothering people at all. Like I'm not poking and prodding at people like, hey man, hey, how you doing, bro? Like I'm not like that. I'm like, he's got a life, I got a life. Let's I don't need to be another I don't need to be another person just trying to poke and prod at him. It's just not, I don't like doing that. So
No, it's not also not what I meant, and I can see that you're not like that. But
yeah.
I think that I don't know. Let's say someone reaches out to me today, and then in 2 years I see that person that just checked with me something and work hard and managed to. I don't want to say to be because successful it's something really undefinable. Like you cannot say what
It's
is
very vague.
Yeah, it's
I
very
get what you
vague.
mean.
But I can say that you are successful in a manner that you are making out of what you love a living. So this for me is success. For your standards, like if you do something that you love and you manage to live out of it, it's perfect. And I would be very proud of that person. I would feel some special connection, which doesn't mean like we need to talk every day, but it means like, yeah, if that person is doing good, I'm gonna be happy because somehow it started from something that I was doing. So this is what I was imagining in my head, not that you're sort of a fun boy.
He probably, I don't know. I have not brought that up. Like, hey, remember when it was like a few years ago and I was just this little shithead that just would not shut up or whatever. Like, remember that? And no, but I don't think it's ever brought. I think we just kind of like are just to ourselves a lot in that sense. I don't think he's probably I don't think he's brought it up, but it's kind of just been there. Like, I think he might know or something or whatever, but well,
you don't know.
So
no, but I think it's cool. I think it's and it's for me it's also very interesting because as you said, I've been doing different things in my life, like sports or something else, and then I would have my sort of mentor, and they would tell me do this like consistently, and then I wouldn't. And in your case was something that you did, and of course it worked out for you. Yeah, so it's cool. But what are you guys now up to, like with this crypto stuff? Like, because recently I saw there was like, I didn't know exactly what it was, but there was sort of this image or artwork that Beeple did and then sold, and then the people were selling. Is that something connected, or because you mentioned like you were also into cryptocurrency right now or something like that?
So the whole crypto art thing, I've been trying to get into it, and I think I've now realized, like, unless you have the following of that are on par with like Beeple or like any of these other artists, you're not like, it's going to be very hard to get into stuff like that. And it's possible, it's very possible, but at the moment it's just very hard for smaller artists to be able to do something like that. And I think I tried to apply. It's taking it, they've already been flooded with millions upon millions of people who just want to be in that world of crypto art, and I'm just this little speck within that giant group of people. So at this point, if I'm approved, whatever. If I'm not approved, it's fine. It's whatever. But I'm trying to figure out different ways to be able to do that. Hopefully soon, There might be some crypto art stuff coming out, maybe, but we'll just have to find out.
Can
But
you explain briefly what is this crypto art? What is this? Because I don't know. Me neither. I don't know what it is.
so I'm not the let's go ahead and warn the audience and you. I'm not the professional when it comes to crypto art, but this is my basic understanding of crypto art. All crypto art is an online version or a virtual version of auctioning. So if you've ever been to an auction house or you've ever been to like go and auction, to buy like stuff, whatever it is, you hold up your paddle, they list off numbers, you basically just you try to bid off for whatever's up there, This just happens to be on the computer on the internet, and it has to deal with art, just like some art places. But instead of it being a physical art piece, you're not really bidding for that complete art. You're bidding for that blockchain. Now, what the blockchain is basically all it says is who bought it, and who like, and it verifies like whether you own that art. So one of the controversies in the beginning of it was, I can go screenshot this thing and then I can just throw it up on my my computer and I could say, yo, I own that. But no, you don't own it. Not unless you have that blockchain that says that you own it and your name is on it. So, yeah.
So it's sort of a similar to the cryptocurrency, just crypto art.
Yeah, I think they're calling it, and I don't have a complete understanding of this in either, but the reason they call it crypto art was, I think most places take it, a lot of places take it Ethereum, which is a cryptocurrency. So I know like Super Rare takes Ethereum. Maker's Place, I think, takes Ethereum, and Known Origin, I think, takes the same thing. But Nifty is a real world currency, so it takes like dollars, and so it's just, I don't know why it's completely called cryptocurrency if it's not all crypto, or I don't know why they call it crypto art if it's not all cryptocurrency. So that's one thing I don't understand, and it might just be because that was the popular name to give it. But yeah, it's still very like Wild West type of deal. Like it's still in its infancy stages. What it feels like to me. Some people just may be like, "Oh yeah, no, it's completely built out. You're not there. You're not on that level like we are." But I'm still learning. I still want to keep learning about it and see where it goes. So it seems like it's successful. I mean, if people are making millions of dollars off of it, it's got to be something. So
yeah, I was following this thing without really understanding. Now that you are mentioning crypto art, now I'm starting getting clear and clear, because by this auction that people promoted, they sold one of his art pieces for I think $1, and then they resold it somewhere else for like 10K or something crazy. But I mean, we're living in these crazy times where, I don't know, GameStop people are buying stocks and then reselling them, and then I don't know, Bitcoin's going up like crazy. So it's really, I think we're doing, I feel this time is like the world has taken the cards and now are mixing the deck, and we'll see how they're gonna be re-given after this whole situation we're living. And what do you?
Yeah, it could have been a.
Yeah.
Oh, it could. I was just gonna say it could have been a more perfect time, and I feel like that's a kind of a sad thing to say, because it's like, well, we're all stuck at home. What better thing to do than to get on the internet? What happens to be on the internet? Oh, crypto art! Yay! So now everybody's doing crypto art. So it just was a. It was a more. There couldn't have been a more perfect time, is what I'm trying to say. So.
And do you have any prediction about how your art and your work gonna develop in the next few months, years, from how it was to how it will be, or it's gonna be basically pretty much the same? Not only I'm not meaning only like art wise, but in general, like who you're gonna be your clients, what's gonna be the work and stuff like that.
Yeah, so I'm gonna end up being like a rock star. I'm gonna have so much money that I don't know what I'm gonna do with it, and then I'm gonna crash and burn and end up in a box. Yeah, like nah, but I hope I can get somewhere with it. In terms of like not having to worry so much about certain things. I hope people will just want to buy the artwork, and and I think every artist wants to get to that point. I understand that. There's very few people that are like, "Yo, I just make art to just make myself feel better," and just yeah, and I completely get it if that's your thing, but I feel like majority of people are like, "Oh, I want people to not only I don't want to enjoy it myself, just me. I want other people to enjoy it as well." Because I feel and I don't know if that's some sort of like validation from everybody else, or if it's just like, "Hey, I just want people to be happy." Like if you like Beeple's Buzz Lightyear with giant memories, like just blah, like, and that makes you happy, yo, that's awesome. I think Mike likes it that you think you like it. So, but I want to be successful in certain things, and of course, success is varies for everybody. But in my term, I think I just want to be able to have fun, like get to a point where I could just make stuff and people just be like, "Whoa, yeah, hey, can you do this?" And I just do it, and everyone's just like, "Yeah, we're." And it's just a giant party, just having a good time. So, but I'm not looking for riches and money and just I got a yacht and no, I'm not looking for that. I'm just trying to have a good time, you know.
Yeah, I understand. But I understood also the concept that you said in the beginning, because I'm currently reading a book that's called Real Artists Don't Starve. I just started. So it starts from really back in the days at the times of Michelangelo. And it's like basically saying that allegedly when Michelangelo died, he had something which nowadays would be like $47 million dollars. So like it was to say, like as you said, that your art needs to make you happy, but it needs also to be validated by getting paid, because a lot of artists misunderstand that being an artist means not making money at all, but that's not the point. I think we had a really interesting chat, and your story to me is very fascinating. I'm really fired up. I'm gonna start thinking about some form of everyday. So
man, get into it. You got this. Make an ArcViz photo like every day, man. I try to get people to do it all the time because I've done it. I've seen what's come of it, and so I want other people to have that as well. And it might take a while, but you can get into it and do it as well. It just takes persistence, and you got to have that can-do attitude, as many would say, and you can get it done.
So to wrap it up, I'm introducing this final question now for all the guests on the podcast. If you can mention some book or movie or any kind of media that somehow inspired you or motivated you to do something, what is your pick?
Oh my gosh. This has always been like the hardest question, and I've never been able to answer it, but I think something I can't answer the most inspirational film that I've ever watched, and I think it had to have been I don't know if you've ever seen Tron Legacy. It was this
Yeah.
yeah, it was this movie back in 2000, maybe 11, with Jeff Bridges, and yeah, it's the second movie to the Tron series. But the thing was, everybody was like trashing it, and I was like, "Whoa, what do you mean? This is like insane!" And they didn't understand that from a movie's perspective, it's the story isn't that impressive. It's not like this crazy, like thought-provoking story. No, it's just, but what I saw from it was the style, the aesthetic, the technology used for it, just everything. It blew my mind. And whenever I went to go see it, I didn't see it in like a regular movie theater. I saw it in an IMAX theater. So it was this massive, huge screen with the best audio you could, and I was just blown away. Like it changed how I viewed like certain art. It changed how I view like certain things in terms of like my career. Like that was one of the defining movies that made me want to go down this path. And it was so awesome to be able to see that movie and being able to view it in that way that it really changed my life.
Really cool, man. I remember that movie too. So to really wrap it up, thank you very much for accepting my invitation on the podcast. It was super fun to talk to you. You can say also, where can people find about you on the internet?
So you can follow me on any social media that's probably out there. On Instagram, Revilo_stuff, Twitter, Revilo_stuff. If you want to go check out my website, you can go to www.revilostuff.com and check out work and past projects. And if you want to hit me up for any commissions, you can go on there as well and email me. I have a YouTube as well. So, yeah.
We're gonna put all these things in the description of the podcast, or as now I learned, they say the episode notes. Anyways, and if you like the work we're doing here, the Creative Insider, to support us, you can check the description of the episode also for subscribing to our monthly newsletter, and you also can follow us on the social media, which are Instagram at TCI Podcast and Facebook and LinkedIn, the Creative Insider. So thank you very much one more time, and hope to talk to you soon. Bye bye.
Thank you, man.